Hey everyone. Gas stations at night are already kind of unsettling. The harsh fluorescent lights. The empty parking lots. The strange people you sometimes see. But for some people, a routine stop at a gas station turned into an experience they'll never forget. These are 3 true stories from people who had terrifying encounters at gas stations. Stories that made them question what they saw. And stories that still haunt them to this day. Let's begin. This story comes from a woman named Rachel, who was 24 at the time. It happened in the fall of 2018, on a lonely stretch of highway in rural Arizona. Rachel had been driving for about 6 hours, heading home after visiting family in Phoenix. It was around 11 p.m., and she was exhausted. Her gas light had come on about 20 minutes earlier, and she was starting to worry. There was nothing out here. Just desert and darkness. Finally, she saw it. A gas station sign glowing in the distance. Rachel felt a wave of relief. She pulled off the highway and into the station. It was one of those old, rundown places that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 80s. Faded paint, cracked pavement, buzzing fluorescent lights. But it was open, and that's all that mattered. The parking lot was empty except for one other car, an old sedan parked near the air pump, its windows dark. Rachel pulled up to a pump and got out. The night air was cold. Dead silent except for the hum of the lights overhead. She swiped her card and started pumping gas. That's when she noticed the man. He was standing near the entrance to the station, just outside the door. Tall, thin, wearing a dark jacket and jeans. He wasn't moving. Just standing there, staring at her. Rachel felt a chill run down her spine. She tried to ignore him and focused on the pump. The numbers ticked up slowly. Too slowly. She glanced at the man again. He was closer now. Maybe 15 feet away. She hadn't seen him move, but he was definitely closer. Rachel's heart started to pound. She looked around. Still no other cars. No one else in sight. The gas station attendant was inside, but she couldn't see him through the grimy windows. The pump finally clicked. $30. Rachel quickly put the nozzle back and screwed on her gas cap. When she looked up, the man was right next to her car. Rachel froze. He was just standing there, inches from her driver's side door, staring at her through the window. She could see his face now. Pale. Expressionless. Eyes that didn't blink. "Can I help you?" Rachel's voice came out shaky. The man didn't respond. He just kept staring. Rachel's hands were trembling as she reached for her door handle. She yanked it open, forcing the man to step back, and jumped inside. She locked the doors immediately, and started the engine. The man didn't move. He just stood there, watching her. Rachel threw the car into reverse and backed away from the pump. As she pulled forward toward the exit, she checked her rearview mirror. The man was walking toward her car. Not running. Just walking. Slowly. Deliberately. Rachel hit the gas and sped out of the parking lot, her tires screeching. She didn't slow down until she was back on the highway, her heart still racing. She kept checking her mirrors, expecting to see headlights following her. But there was nothing. Just darkness. Rachel drove for another hour before stopping again, this time at a well-lit truck stop with plenty of people around. She went inside to use the bathroom and grabbed some coffee, trying to calm her nerves. While she was paying, the cashier noticed she looked shaken. "You okay, hon?" Rachel hesitated, then told her about the gas station. About the man who'd been staring at her. The cashier's expression changed. Where was this? About an hour back. Off exit 47. The cashier was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "There's no gas station at exit 47. Not anymore. That place shut down 3 years ago after the owner died. Been abandoned ever since." Rachel felt sick. "No, I was just there. I got gas. I used my card." She pulled out her phone and checked her bank app. No charge. No transaction. Nothing. But her gas tank was full. Rachel asked the cashier what had happened to the owner. The woman looked uncomfortable. "He was killed. Robbery gone wrong. They never caught the guy." Rachel didn't ask any more questions. She just got back in her car and drove straight home. But here's the thing that still keeps Rachel up at night. A few weeks later, she was scrolling through local news and came across an old article about the murder. There was a photo of the gas station owner. She recognized him immediately. It was the man who'd been staring at her that night. This story comes from a guy named Marcus, who was 19 at the time. It happened in the summer of 2020, in a small town in Georgia. Marcus had just started working the overnight shift at a 24-hour gas station. It was his first real job, and he needed the money. The pay was decent, and most nights were quiet. He'd stock shelves, clean the bathrooms, ring up the occasional customer. Easy work. But there was something about the place that bothered him. It was the back room. The gas station had a small storage area in the back where they kept extra inventory, cases of soda, boxes of chips, cleaning supplies. There was also an old office back there that nobody used anymore. Just a desk, a broken chair, and a filing cabinet. The door to the office was always closed. And Marcus's manager had told him on his first day, "Don't go in there. We don't use it. Just leave it alone." Marcus thought it was weird, but he didn't ask questions. For the first few weeks, everything was fine. But then, one night around 2 a.m., Marcus heard something. It was coming from the back room. A sound like something being dragged across the floor. Marcus was behind the counter, restocking cigarettes. He stopped and listened. The sound came again. Slow. Heavy. Marcus's heart started to race. He was alone in the store. The doors were locked except for the main entrance, and he could see the parking lot through the windows. Empty. He grabbed a flashlight from under the counter and slowly walked toward the back room. "Hello?" His voice echoed in the empty store. No response. Marcus pushed open the door to the storage area. The lights were off. He flipped the switch, and the fluorescent bulbs flickered to life. Everything looked normal. Boxes stacked neatly. Shelves organized. Nothing out of place. Except the office door. It was open. Marcus knew for a fact it had been closed earlier. He'd walked past it multiple times during his shift. He approached the door slowly, his flashlight held out in front of him. "Is someone in there?" No answer. Marcus stepped into the office. It was empty. Just the old desk, the chair, the filing cabinet. Dust everywhere. But something felt wrong. The air was colder in here. And there was a smell. Faint, but distinct. Like something rotting. Marcus turned to leave, and that's when he saw it. On the desk, there was something that hadn't been there before. A piece of paper. Marcus picked it up. It was old, yellowed, the edges torn. There was handwriting on it. Shaky, uneven letters. Get out. Marcus dropped the paper and backed out of the office. He slammed the door shut and went back to the front of the store. He told himself it was a prank. Maybe one of the other employees had left it there as a joke. But when he mentioned it to his manager the next day, the man's face went pale. You went in the office? Yeah, the door was open. I told you not to go in there. Why? What's the big deal? The manager hesitated, then sighed. The previous night shift guy, he had an accident. In that office. Died right there at the desk. Heart attack, they said. But some people think it was something else. Marcus felt a chill. What do you mean? He'd been complaining for weeks that something was in that room. Said he'd hear noises. See things. Management thought he was just tired, working too many hours. But then one night they found him. Dead. Sitting at that desk. Marcus didn't want to believe it. But he couldn't shake the feeling. That night, he was back on shift. Around 3 a.m., the lights in the store started to flicker. Then they went out completely. Marcus was plunged into darkness. The only light came from the glow of the refrigerators and the street lights outside. He fumbled for his flashlight and turned it on. And that's when he heard it. Footsteps. Coming from the back room. Slow. Deliberate. Getting closer. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. He wanted to run, but he was frozen. The footsteps reached the door to the storage area. Then they stopped. Marcus could hear breathing now. Raspy. Labored. And then a voice. Low and hoarse. Get out! The lights flickered back on. Marcus was standing alone in the store. The back room was silent. He quit that night. Didn't even finish his shift. Just grabbed his things and left. When he came back the next day to pick up his final paycheck, his manager told him they were closing the location. Corporate had decided it wasn't profitable anymore. But Marcus heard rumors around town. Rumors that other employees had experienced the same thing. That the place had always been cursed. Marcus never worked another overnight shift again. But sometimes, late at night, he still hears that voice. Get out! This last story comes from a man named David, who was 32 at the time. It happened in the winter of 2019, on a road trip through Montana. David was driving cross-country, moving from Seattle to Chicago for a new job. He'd been on the road for 2 days, and he was exhausted. It was late, almost midnight, and he'd been driving through a snowstorm for the last hour. He needed gas and a break. Finally, he saw a sign for a rest stop with a gas station. David pulled off the highway and into the parking lot. The place was small. Just a single building with a convenience store and restrooms, and 4 gas pumps out front. There were 2 other vehicles in the lot, a semi-truck parked near the back, and a van with out-of-state plates. David pulled up to a pump and got out. The cold hit him immediately. The wind was brutal, and snow was coming down hard. He swiped his card and started pumping gas, hunching his shoulders against the wind. That's when he noticed the woman. She was standing near the entrance to the store, partially hidden in the shadows. She was wearing a thin jacket and no gloves, and she was just standing there, staring at him. David felt uneasy. He gave her a small nod, trying to be polite. She didn't move, didn't acknowledge him, just kept staring. David finished pumping and decided to go inside to grab some coffee and use the restroom. As he walked toward the entrance, The woman stepped aside to let him pass. Up close, he could see her face. She was young, maybe mid-20s. Pale. Her eyes were wide, and she looked terrified. "Are you okay?" David asked. The woman opened her mouth like she was going to say something, but then she just shook her head and looked away. David hesitated, then went inside. The store was empty except for the clerk, a middle-aged man reading a magazine behind the counter. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Country music played softly from a radio. David grabbed a coffee and walked to the counter. "Cold one tonight," the clerk said, not looking up. "Yeah. Brutal." David paid for the coffee and was about to leave when he glanced out the window. The woman was still outside. She was standing near David's car now, looking in through the window. "Hey," David said to the clerk. "Do you know that woman out there?" The clerk looked up. "What woman?" David pointed. "Right there. By my car." The clerk stood up and walked over to the window. He stared out for a long moment, then turned to David with a confused expression. "There's nobody out there." David looked again. The woman was gone. He felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. She was just there. "I saw her." The clerk shrugged. "Maybe she got in one of the other vehicles." David didn't think so, but he didn't argue. He just thanked the clerk and headed back outside. The parking lot was empty now. The semi-truck and the van were both gone. It was just David's car. He got in quickly, locked the doors, and started the engine. As he pulled out of the parking lot, he checked his mirrors. And that's when he saw her. The woman was standing in the middle of the road behind him. Just standing there in the snow, staring at his car. David's blood ran cold. He hit the gas and sped back onto the highway, his heart pounding. He drove for another hour before stopping again, this time at a busy truck stop with dozens of people around. While he was eating, he overheard two truck drivers talking. "You hear about that rest stop back on I-90? The one near mile marker 52? Yeah. Someone said they saw her again." "Saw who?" "That girl. The one who disappeared." David's ears perked up. He leaned over. "Excuse me, what are you guys talking about?" The truck drivers looked at him. One of them said, "There's this rest stop about an hour back. A few years ago, a woman went missing from there. Never found her. But people say they still see her sometimes. Standing outside. Looking for help." David felt sick. "What did she look like?" "Young. Pale. Scared." David didn't say anything. He just finished his food and left. When he got home a few days later, he looked up the story online. Her name was Emily Carter. She was 26 years old. She'd stopped at that rest stop in January of 2016 during a snowstorm. Her car was found in the parking lot the next morning, keys still in the ignition, purse and phone inside. But Emily was gone. They never found her body. Never figured out what happened. But the reports said one thing that made David's blood run cold. On the night she disappeared, several witnesses reported seeing a woman matching her description standing outside the rest stop, staring at passing cars, asking for help. But when anyone tried to approach her, she'd vanish. So there you have it. 3 true stories from people who had terrifying encounters at gas stations. Places that should be safe, ordinary, but turned into something else entirely. The next time you stop for gas late at night, pay attention. You never know who or what might be watching. Which story scared you the most? The late night fill up, the graveyard shift, or the rest stop encounter? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories. Stay safe out there. And maybe, don't stop at that abandoned gas station. Until next time.